What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my full card breakdown and predictions for UFC Vegas 88. We got Tai Tuivasa going against Marcin Tybura.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out.
And we are back for another full card breakdown and prediction video. This week we are back in the Apex for UFC Vegas 88. And yeah, I know it's kind of a disappointment going from, what was probably the card of the year and UFC 299 to UFC Vegas 88 headlined by, Tai Tuivasa and Marcin Tybura, but I actually think this card's really good. I'm really looking forward to it. I think the matchmaking on this card is awesome. I think it's one of those cards where maybe the name value isn't there, but I think these fights are going to play out in a very fun way. I think we get some finishes as well. So yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Looking forward to breaking it down. Before we get into, if you guys could do me a couple favors, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. This video is brought to you by Prize Picks. If you guys want to check out Prize Picks, use that promo code DFSBTN and you'll get yourself a 100% deposit match up to $100. And also check out the website dfsbythenumbers.com. There you'll find all my other content throughout the week. And then I do want to shout out the winner from last week's contest, the Significant Strike contest. We had the Significant Strikes between Sean O'Malley and Marlon Vera. Sean O'Malley put on an absolute clinic, and shout out to my guy, Ben, hopefully I pronounced this right, Ben Crotcher, guessed 319 significant strikes. Ben, you got it on the dot. So doubling up the prize money, instead of 25, you're getting $50. Hit me up on Twitter or Instagram with your PayPal or Cash App. I got you, Ben. And shout out to Ben, by the way. Ben is a member on the channel as well. So shout out to Ben. Glad to see it. You, sir, won $50. Incredible guest there. One of the first couple people to comment as well. So shout out to him. So yeah, looking forward to this card. Solid card overall. UFC Vegas 88. I say we get right into it, and we're going to start with the first fight of the card. And we got Charalampos, Grigoriou going against Chad Anheliger. We got Grigoriou. He is 31 years old, 5'7" with a 76.5-inch reach, 8-3 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Chad Anheliger, he is 37 years old, 5'6" with a 64-inch reach. He is 12-7 and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds we have. Let's see. Grigoriou opened up minus 220. He is currently sitting at minus 160. And then Chad Anheliger opened up plus 185. And he is currently sitting as a plus 140 underdog. So, yeah, I do remember Grigoriou from Dana White's Contender Series. He went out there and got a knockout win within the first minute. I think it was like 60 seconds exactly. And, yeah, that was a great performance, incredible performance. Went out there and knocked the guy out. But I'll be honest, I'm not too high on Grigoriou. I don't think he's the best fighter in the world. I think he can be a little bit low volume at times. He can wrestle a little bit. I don't think the cardio is that great either. I just think he's okay. I don't think he's anything special, but man, did he have a special performance against Cameron Smotherman on the Contender Series where he did knock him out that quickly, and that was impressive, but that's not really something he does all that much. I mean, he has some pop, but he's going against Chad Anheliger, who is 37 years old, who I'm also not that high on. I think I've picked against Chad Anheliger in pretty much every single one of his fights. I know I picked Jose Johnson against him. I picked Alatang Haley against him. I did pick him against Jesse Strader for obvious reasons, but even on the Contender Series, he fought Moin Gafarov. Gafarov was like a minus 300 to minus 400 favorite there. I was pretty confident in Gafarov, and Chad Anheliger went out there and pulled off the upset. Chad is very, very low volume. The ground game suspect. This guy has 7 losses, 6 of them come by submission. So that's typically how he loses. It is by submission. Pretty much all his losses are by submission. Grigoriou, that's not his game, though. Grigoriou has 0 submission wins in all 11 of his fights. So I do think we get a fight that does take place on the feet. And when we do, I think it's going to be competitive. I kind of think Grigoriou is going to get the better of the exchanges early. I think Grigoriou is going to be a little bit more high volume early. But Chad Anheliger, this guy's a dog. This guy has 3-round cardio, and this guy hits like a truck. 37 years old definitely does concern me, but I think I'm going to pick Chad Anheliger here. The line has came down a little bit, so I think there's some people on this underdog as well. I don't know if I'll get there from a betting perspective, but I will pick the dog here in Chad Anheliger. I'm going to take him to win this fight actually by knockout. I think it comes in the 3rd round. So it's going to be Chad Anheliger to kick off the card by 3rd round knockout. Not sure I'm touching the fight, though. Next, we got Jaqueline Amorim going against Cory McKenna. We got Amorim, 28 years old, 5'3" with a 68-inch reach, 7-1 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Cory McKenna, 24 years old, 5'3" with a 58.5-inch reach, 8-2 and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. So we have Cory McKenna opened up plus 120. She's now minus 125. Jaqueline Amorim opened up minus 140. She's currently plus 105. So yeah, I typically look into a lot of these fights like the week prior. And yeah, I did see Cory McKenna slight plus money. And then I was thinking, yeah, Cory McKenna is probably a very live dog here. And then this week rolls around. And then by the time I finally, dig even more into the fights, Cory McKenna's like a minus 120, minus 125 favorite. And, I can't be confident in Cory McKenna. How could you be confident in Cory McKenna? I'll always go back to that Elise Reed fight where, holy crap. I mean, Elise Reed has a huge gaping hole in her game, and that is the ground game. Like, Elise Reed gets finished on the ground all the time, even by Loma Luke Boomy, submitted Elise Reed. Why can't Cory McKenna go out there, take her down and sub her? But Cory McKenna thought it would be a good idea to go out there and strike with Elise Reed and win that decision. So if she doesn't grapple there, how can I count on her to go out there and, what I think the game plan here should be is, take down Jaqueline Amorim, which might be crazy to say because Amorim is a legit black belt in BJJ, but, on the feet, I think I don't know, it could really go either way. I don't think either fighter is the best striker in the world, but, Jaqueline Amorim is going to have like a 9.5-inch reach advantage. She's going to be the much longer fighter. I mean, that's a massive reach advantage there. So, on the feet, I think it's probably competitive, even though Amorim does have a really big reach advantage. But where I do actually feel like Cory McKenna can win minutes is on top here. We've seen Cory McKenna in multiple fights go out there and win minutes on top, even against really good grapplers like Kay Hansen, who's a solid grappler, Vanessa Demopoulos, who's a black belt as well. We've seen Cory McKenna be able to go out there and, get in maybe some bad spots against Kay Hansen, but be able to fight out of all of those bad spots. I think her submission defense is on point. I trust the cardio of McKenna a lot more. I trust the wrestling of McKenna a lot more. But Amorim's dangerous. She's going to be dangerous early, but as the fight goes on, I just trust McKenna a lot more down the stretch. So I think it's Amorim early potentially or McKenna by decision. I'm more so on the McKenna side, but nothing I'm really running to the window for. The pick will be Cory McKenna and Cory McKenna by decision. Moving on, I think we have probably this could be potential fight of the night here. We got Josh Culibao going against Danny Silva. We got Josh Culibao, 29 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach, 11-2-1, and 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. We got Danny Silva, 27 years old, 5'11", with a 70-inch reach, 8-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We'll take a look at the odds. We got Josh Culibao as the favorite. He opened up minus 195. He's currently minus 160. Danny Silva opened up plus 160. He's currently plus 140. So yeah, this fight is going to be fun, and I think it's going to be fun because it is a Danny Silva fight, and Danny Silva is one of those guys that just walks forward the entire time, throwing a ton of volume. If you guys have not seen his Dana White's Contender Series fight against Angel Pacheco, you got to go watch it. It was an absolute war where they attempted over 800 strikes thrown combined in that fight. Angel Pacheco landed 197. Danny Silva landed 204 significant strikes, and that's what Danny Silva does. This guy's a dog. This guy's coming forward with reckless abandon. He doesn't care if you hit him in the face. He's going to keep marching forward. He's a tough guy, and that's going to bring a ton of exciting fights. He's going against Josh Culibao, who is kind of the opposite. Josh Culibao is very, very low volume, only landing 2.68 significant strikes per minute. Josh Culibao is a guy that does attempt a lot of takedowns per fight, actually, but he hasn't got one takedown yet. So he has a 0% takedown accuracy. So I think this fight does take place on the feet, and when it does, you're going to have Danny Silva marching forward like a zombie, and then you're going to have Josh Culibao, who, honestly, he hits really hard, and that's kind of where the worry is, because Josh Culibao does have a ton of power. He went out there, he dropped Sungwoo Choi twice. He went out there and he dropped Charles Jourdain. He has a ton of power in his hands, and, with how hittable Silva is, and he is hittable. He absorbed 200 strikes on the Contender Series. That could be a concern. But in terms of who's going to be winning the minutes, I got to think it's Danny Silva, because he's going to be doing all the pressuring. He's going to be throwing all the volume. And as long as his chin does hold up, I think he's going to be doing the better work in this fight. But yeah, this is going to be a firefight here. I think this is going to be a firefight. I think it's going to be an absolute war. But I kind of like Danny Silva here to march forward and maybe even break Josh Culibao. We've seen Josh Culibao finish before. I know it was against Jalen Turner in the second round, but Jalen Turner kind of broke him. We saw Lerone Murphy almost break him and finish him in the third round. We saw him kind of break against Sungwoo Choi in the third round as well. And I think that pressure could potentially get to Josh Culibao here. So I'm going to take Danny Silva to win this fight. I'm going to take him to win this fight by third round knockout, but this should be an absolute banger. Moving on, we got Thiago Moises going against Mitch Ramirez. We got Thiago Moises, 28 years old, 5'9" with a 70.5-inch reach, 17-7, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Mitch Ramirez, 31 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach, 8-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We will take a look at the odds. Thiago Moises opened up minus 335, currently minus 360. Mitch Ramirez opened up plus 275. He's currently a plus 295 dog, which makes Thiago Moises, I believe, the second biggest favorite on the card, right behind Kennedy in the Chukwu. But yeah, Mitch Ramirez is a Contender Series guy who did lose on the Contender Series, which, I don't typically like that. We just saw AJ Cunningham, who lost on the Contender Series. They brought Cunningham in against Klein, and we know what happened from there, right? Klein knocked him out in the first round. Mitch Ramirez went out there against Carlos Praches, and Carlos Praches knocked him out in the second round. This is one of those fights where I just think it's a levels fight. Thiago Moises, he's okay. He's okay. He's a legit BJJ black belt. That's always been his game. The striking slowly has come along. He's training at a great gym in ATT. The wrestling is getting better and better. He's okay. What I noticed about Thiago Moises is, he goes out there and he's able to beat these lower level guys. He's able to beat, a Kurt Holloway. He's able to beat a Michael Johnson, a Christos Giagos, a Mel Costa. But when he does take like a step up in competition against somebody, pretty decent, he loses that fight almost every time. Lost to Benoit Saint Denis, Joel Alvarez, Islam Makhachev, Damir Ismagulov, and Benil Dariush. Those are his 5 losses. All incredible fighters, honestly. All fighters who would destroy Mitch Ramirez. So I feel like this is a good spot for Thiago Moises to go out there and probably get a submission win like he did against Mel Costa, like he did against Christos Giagos. I think his ground game is going to be on another level. I don't like the fact that Mitch Ramirez is coming in here on short notice. I feel like Moises is able to get the takedown, get to the back, and probably choke out Mitch Ramirez in the first or second round. So I'm going to take Thiago Moises to win this fight. I'll take him to win this fight by second round submission. Moving on to the next fight, we have Jafel Filho going against Ode Osbourne. Another great fight. Like, this card has a ton of great fights, and this is one of them. Filho, he is 30 years old, 5'7" with a 68.5-inch reach, 15-3, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Ode Osbourne, he is 32 years old, 5'7" with a 73-inch reach, 12-6, and 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Jafel Filho opened up minus 155, currently minus 180. Ode Osbourne opened up plus 135. He's currently plus 155. And yeah, this is a fight where, first of all, I think this fight's going to be an incredible fight. These flyweights are going to go after it. These are 2 flyweights who are definitely kill or be killed, especially Ode Osbourne. This is a guy in Ode Osbourne who has, 6 losses, 5 of which coming inside the distance. Filho has 3 losses, 2 of which come inside the distance, and they're both very, very good finishers as well. Jafel Filho put on an incredible fight in his last fight against Daniel Barez, where Barez had him dead to rights pretty much in the first round. Barez was able to hurt him to the body multiple times. If he would have probably dropped him again to the body, the ref probably would have stopped that fight, but Filho showed a ton of toughness in that first round, was able to start hurting Barez, and then ended up taking him down and submitting him shortly after. Like, Filho's a dog. This is a guy that has a ton of toughness. He's never been knocked out. This guy has no quit in him, and his ground game is just incredible. And his striking's not terrible. Like, he seems to be a little bit, I want to say, he's not as confident in his striking, but when he does let his hands go, he's very powerful and very dangerous. And I think he should, be more confident in that striking. But it's his ground game that's where all his confidence lies, is that ground game. This is a guy in Filho who has a 93% finish rate. 60% of those wins come by submission. He's no joke on the ground. And he's going against Ode Osbourne, who I'm just not sold on. This is a guy that's 12-6. Like I said, 5 finish losses, getting finished by Asu Amabayev, Tyson Nam, Manel Kopp, and Brian Kelleher. He's been submitted twice in the UFC, and I think he probably does get submitted here. What I'll say, though, is Ode Osbourne is really front-loaded. You look at Ode Osbourne, a lot of his wins do come early on, and a lot of his success does come early on as well. So if Ode Osbourne does win this fight, he's probably knocking out Filho in the first round, but I don't know. I feel like if this fight does get extended, when this fight does get extended, I think it heavily favors Jafel Filho. I don't like the cardio of Ode Osbourne. I don't like how he looks after those first 5 minutes, so I'm going to take Filho to kind of hang in there in the first round. Maybe get put in some bad spots, maybe get hurt a little bit in the first round, but survive those first 5 minutes and then really start to pour it on Ode Osbourne, and I think he submits him in that second round. So give me Jafel Filho to win this fight by second round submission. All right, next we have Josiane Nunes going against Chelsea Chandler. We got Josiane Nunes, 30 years old, 5'2" with a 67-inch reach, 10-1, and 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Chelsea Chandler, 33 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach, 5-2, and 4-1 in her last 5 fights. So we have Josiane Nunes is a favorite. She opened at -150. She's currently -135. Chelsea Chandler opened up +130. She's currently a +115 dog. And I'll be honest, I just want nothing to do with this fight. I don't trust either fighter. First of all, you have Josiane Nunes, who's literally 5'2" she's fought at featherweight the majority of her career. You know, this fight's at bantamweight. But yeah, 5'2" at bantamweight. She's going to be severely undersized against everybody she fights. But, I mean, they're matching her up against pretty big bantamweights so far. I mean, Zara Farron is a massive bantamweight. Farron also, you know, pretty much a featherweight. Farron was 5'8" on paper. I think Farron's even bigger than 5'8". She matched her up against Bay Malecki, who's 5'9". And then now they're matching her up against Chelsea Chandler, who's 5'8", who's going to have a significant height advantage. And to be honest, I don't even think Nunes is 5'2". I think she's lying. I think she's probably more along the lines of 4'11". I mean, she looks so small in there. I mean, the Zara Farron fight was just hilarious. And to be frank, I thought she lost the Zara Farron fight. You know, it was one of those fights where, you know, I had a bet on Josiane Nunes in some sort of fashion. I was like yelling at the TV. I got my baseball bat out ready to smash the TV because I was shocked at what I was watching. Zara Farron was outlanding her in that fight, 117 to 102. Farron, I believe, outlanded her in every single round. I mean, it was a concerning look in that fight. On the flip side, you got Chelsea Chandler, who looked like a new contender against Julio Stoliarenko, beat the brakes off of her, finished her in the first round, and then she goes out there against Norma Dumont and looks atrocious. So I don't trust either one of these fighters at all. I don't trust Chelsea Chandler to go out there and get the fight down to the mat. If she does, maybe she has an advantage. We saw Ramona Pascual take down Josiane Nunes. But yeah, if Chelsea Chandler does not get the fight down to the mat, although Nunes is so much smaller, you got to favor Nunes in the striking. Like Chelsea Chandler, she's very, very hittable, 42% striking defense. And Nunes, although small, you know, she does have a ton of power and she does have solid striking. So this fight, I don't know. I feel like it can go either way. I see a lot of people betting on this fight. Good luck. But I'm going to take Josiane Nunes to win this fight by decision. I'll say she stuffs the takedowns if they even come, and she does the better work here on the feet across 15. But this fight is one I will not be touching with a 10-foot pole. But yeah, Nunes by decision. Moving on, we got Mike Davis going against Natan Levy. We got Mike Davis, 31 years old, 6 foot with a 72.5-inch reach, 10-2 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Natan Levy, 32 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach, 8-1 and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. We have Mike Davis, who opened up as a -300 favorite. He is currently sitting at -290. And then we got Natan Levy, who opened up as a +250 underdog. He is currently sitting at +250. So the first thing I do want to talk about is just the inactivity from Mike Davis. Because Mike Davis, honestly, he's probably one of my favorite fighters. He really is. But he never fights. You know, I remember watching his fight against Thomas Gifford, right? I was with my buddy, and we were watching that fight, and it was probably like one of the biggest beatdowns I've ever seen. Like, I think whoever was reffing that fight, which I think it was Andrew Glenn. I mean, Andrew Glenn should be ashamed of himself for letting that fight go as long as it did. Like, even the commentators were like, what the heck are you doing? Like, why aren't you stopping the fight? And, you know, Davis beat the crap so bad out of Thomas Gifford, and then he was on his way to winning a decision just with, like, I think it was like 15 seconds left, just lands a big shot, flatlines Thomas Gifford, and Thomas Gifford goes face first into the canvas. It was tough to watch because up until then, Davis beat the living crap out of Thomas Gifford, so I would never forget that fight, and that night I became a massive fan of Mike Davis. But since that night, back in 2019, in October, he's fought twice. He's fought only twice in like the last 6 years. It's crazy. Well, 5 years. So he fought Slava Borshev a year and a half ago. And then he fought Mason Jones 3 years ago. And then, like I said, that Thomas Gifford fight was like 4.5 years ago. So yeah, he's inactive. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries, like a lot of injuries. I'm not sure what they are, but I know he's been dealing with some injuries the last couple years. But what I will say is, although Mike Davis doesn't fight often, when he does fight, he's very good. Like, this is a guy who I think, if he was a little bit more active, this guy can absolutely be a contender. It's just he never fights. But yeah, on a 3-fight winning streak, that Gifford win, like I was talking about, Mason Jones decision win, and then a Slava Borshev decision win. This is a fight where Mike Davis is better everywhere than Natan Levy. This is a fight where if there wasn't injury narratives with Davis, if there wasn't inactivity concerns with Davis, I mean, he would probably be minus 500 or greater here. But yeah, the fact of the matter is, this guy hasn't fought in a long time. This guy has been dealing with his injuries. So that's the major concerns there. But yeah, Mike Davis, he's the much better striker. His striking's incredible. I think he has the better cardio. I think he has the better wrestling. I think he has the better jiu-jitsu. I think he's better in every single aspect of MMA besides inactivity. So yeah, it's got to be Davis here. And I think if he does show up and we get the best version of Davis, I don't think this fight's even close. Like, I think he goes out there, styles on Levy, and probably finishes him as well. So I'm going to take Davis to win this fight. I'm going to take him to win this fight by 3rd round knockout. Mike Breeden was not able to get Natan Levy out of there in that 3rd round. He was close, but I think Davis does get him out of there. Give me a Mike Davis to win this fight by 3rd round knockout. Next, we have Gerald Meerschaert going against Bryan Barberena. We got Gerald Meerschaert, 36 years old, 6'1" with a 77.5-inch reach, 35-17, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Bryan Barberena, 34 years old, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach, 18-11, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Meerschaert opened up minus 155, currently minus 240. Holy crap. Bryan Barberena opened up plus 135. He's currently plus 205. Kind of shocking considering, Gerald Meerschaert, I think it's 19 or 20 UFC fights, and he's only been the favorite like 3 or 4 times. Like, this guy is a guy you typically always see as the dog, and you typically want to bet as an underdog, but here he is as a pretty big favorite, which kind of scary, but I mean, I can kind of see why as well. He's going against Bryan Barberena, who is a guy that he's only 34 years old, but I think in terms of fight years, he is like 78. I mean, this is a guy who's just been in war after war after war. This is a guy that's dealt with like serious injuries, the latter half of his career. He had like a terrible back injury as well, where the doctor said he probably shouldn't be fighting. I mean, Bryan Barberena's had like a lot of problems later in his career. Now he's on a 3-fight skid, getting finished in 2 of those 3 fights. Probably should have been 3 if Makhmudmuradov had any sense of urgency in that fight. Just hasn't been a good look, and it hasn't been a good look for a while. I remember that Anthony Ivy fight where, holy crap, you should be, knocking Anthony Ivy out in the 1st round, and Anthony Ivy actually had some success in that fight, taking down Barberena multiple times. And then he lost to Jason Witt, which, what the heck? What the heck, Bryan Barberena? How are you losing to Jason Witt? And I think it was even Jason Witt that dropped Bryan Barberena in that fight. So it's like what's going on? And that was back in 2021 at that point. Fast forward 3 years later, and he's now 34. So yeah, I think Bryan Barberena is more than coming towards the end of his career, which is sad. Like, this is a guy that always brings it. He's always in fun and exciting fights, but he hasn't had a ton of success as of late. This is a guy that is not the biggest welterweight and now moved up to middleweight in his last fight and just looked out of place. He looked out of place against Muradov, and he's probably going to look out of place here against Meerschaert. So do I trust Meerschaert at a minus number? No, but Meerschaert is a guy that I think he's an underrated striker. I really do. I think he can hang in the striking. The chin's definitely a worry, but like I just said, if Barberena is not knocking out Jason Witt or Anthony Ivy, maybe it's not too much of a concern. And then on top of that, Meerschaert, I mean, the elephant in the room is the grappling defense of Bryan Barberena, the takedown defense. It's not great at all. Meerschaert, although not a great wrestler, I don't think he needs to be. Bryan Barberena stuffed takedowns at a 49%. Meerschaert should be able to get this fight down to the mat, and when he does, he probably should be able to sub Bryan Barberena, who has been subbed a lot in his career. So, yeah, I'm going to take Meerschaert here. I'm going to take him to win this fight by 2nd round submission. I think he gets this fight down to the mat at some point in time, and when he does, it's probably a wrap, and I think we might see Bryan Barberena hang him up in the very near future. So, yeah, give me Meerschaert to win this fight by 2nd round submission. Moving on, we got a rematch. We got Macy Chiasson going against Pannie Kianzad. We got Chiasson. She's 5'11", 32 years old with a 72-inch reach, 8-3, and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Kianzad, she's 32 years old, 5'7", with a 66-inch reach, 16-7, and 3-2 in her last 5 fights. Let's see, we got Chiasson. She opened up minus 180. She is currently minus 200. Kianzad, she opened up plus 155. She's currently plus 170. So yeah, like I said, this is a rematch, which all rematches do not play out the same. But in that first fight, Chiasson was able to use her size, was able to get the fight down to the mat, was able to submit Pannie Kianzad in that second round. That was back in 2018 at that point. And that fight, I believe, was at featherweight. This fight is going to be at bantamweight. I think it's going to be important to see Macy Chiasson on the scale because Macy Chiasson actually has missed weight before at featherweight. She weighed in at like 148.5. I forget which fight, but she's missed weight at featherweight before, so we do got to see Macy Chiasson on the scales. But if she does make weight, everything goes good. She's going to be much bigger than Kianzad. She's going to have a 4-inch height advantage. She's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage. And yeah, I think what it's all going to come down to is that physicality of Macy Chiasson, is that size, is that strength. She should be able to push Kianzad against the cage. She'll be able to win minutes there. She'll be able to probably take her down. She'll be able to win minutes on the mat as well. We just saw in Kianzad's last fight, we saw Ketlen Vieira take down Kianzad, I believe, in every single round. Control her multiple times in every single round, and Ketlen Vieira racked up 11 minutes of control time. I could kind of see the same thing here. Chiasson winning minutes on the cage, winning minutes on the mat, ultimately winning a decision here. So, yeah, it's Chiasson for me. Chiasson to win this fight by decision. I don't really like this matchup for Kianzad, to be honest. But we'll see. She'll have to stuff takedown. She'll have to stay off the cage. I think that's going to be easier said than done, especially in the smaller Apex cage here. So give me Chiasson to win this fight and win it by decision. Moving on, we have probably the people's main event here. We got Isaac Dalgarian going against Christian Rodriguez. We got Dalgarian, 27 years old, 5'7", with a 71-inch reach, 6-0, 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Christian Rodriguez, 26 years old, 5'7", with a 71-inch reach, 10-1, and 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Dalgarian, he opened up a minus 125 favorite, currently minus 175. Christian Rodriguez opened up plus 105, currently plus 150. People liking themselves some Dalgarian. And this is a fight where it's my favorite fight in the card, first and foremost. I'm looking forward to this fight. These are 2 prospects that I'm extremely high on, as everybody should be. These guys are both incredible fighters who I think have massive upsides. I mean, Christian Rodriguez, this guy's only 26 years old, and he's went out there in his last 2 fights and beaten 2 other prospects that people were really high on. People were really excited about Cameron Simon, who's another young guy, and Christian Rodriguez went out there and beat him pretty handedly. And then he also went out there and beat up Raul Rosas Jr., who a lot of people were excited about as well. So he's taken on another big prospect here in Isaac Dalgarian, who people are really, really excited about. So we'll see if we can kind of, get it done 3 times in a row against a highly touted prospect. But yeah, this guy, Isaac Dalgarian, there's not much tape on him. There's really not. Like, you can go watch his entire career in 10 minutes. And I did do that, and it's very impressive. But he's not fought the best competition. His best opponent is Francis Marshall. But man, Francis Marshall is not a bad fighter at all. Francis Marshall is good. Francis Marshall, the best thing about him is how tough he is, and just the way that Dalgarian went out there, took him down, and just pounded the crap out of him and TKO'd him in the first round. I mean, it was brutal, and it really, it definitely put Dalgarian on the map, which he should be on the map. This guy is very good. Wrestling background. He's training at High Elevation in Colorado. This is a guy that we haven't seen him in the second round. We haven't, and that's kind of the big talking point for a lot of people, including myself, because if this fight does get into the second round, it will get interesting. But man, if Dalgarian can keep up the pace he sets in the first round, into the second, into the third, like, who the heck is beating Isaac Dalgarian? But we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen him go into the second round. We haven't seen him go into the third round. And I'm not sure he does here either. I think he'll have no problem taking down Christian Rodriguez early on. Christian Rodriguez, not saying his takedown defense is bad, but we did see Raul Rosas Jr. take him down 3 times. We did see Jonathan Pierce take him down 6 times. We saw Joshua Weems, the guy with the blue hair, take him down 2 times. So, yeah, Christian Rodriguez's takedown defense is good, but it's not elite. And Isaac Dalgarian's wrestling looks elite, and Isaac Dalgarian should be able to get down Christian Rodriguez. And when he does get guys down, he gets into dominant positions, and he has the nastiest ground and pound you'll see. So, yeah, Interesting fight. I think you can make a case for both sides. I think this line's probably getting too out of hand, but I'm on the Bulgarian side myself. I'll say he gets takedowns here. I'll say he gets on top and finds that early finish. But I'd be curious to see what he looks like in the second round. But yeah, I'm gonna take him to win this fight by first round TKO, and I think he gets it done here. But yeah, this fight's very, very interesting here. If Rodriguez does survive those first 5 minutes, what will Bulgarian look like? But even then, I kind of have like a weird feeling that Bulgarian might be able to keep that pace into the second round. And if he does, this guy's going to be good. And I don't think, if he can keep that pace into the second round, I don't think Rodriguez is beating him. So, yeah, give me Bulgarian. I'll say he wins this fight by first round TKO, though. All right. Up next, we have a fight that should not be sanctioned. We have Kennedy Nzechukwu going against Ovince St. Preux. We have Kennedy Nzechukwu. He's 31 years old, 6'5" with an 83-inch reach, 12-4. And 3-2 in his last 5 fights. OSP, 40 years old, 6'3" with an 80-inch reach, 26-17, and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. You guessed it, Kennedy is the biggest favorite on the card. Opened up -500, currently -510. OSP opened up +375. He's currently +385. And yeah, this fight should not be happening. You know, OSP should not be fighting this upcoming Saturday. But with all that said, you can't lay -500 on Kennedy because there's a lot of weird outcomes in Kennedy fights. Like, he got starched in 1 minute by Dustin Jacoby. Who the heck is Dustin Jacoby starching in 1 minute? You know, Dustin Jacoby, phenomenal fighter, don't get me wrong, but, you know, he's a decision guy most of the time. He's taking guys 15 minutes. Yeah, he got starched in a minute by Dustin Jacoby. And then he got knocked out in the first round against Da Un Jung in a fight where he had his guard up and Da Un Jung elbowed his guard. It looked like he didn't even get through, but he got knocked out from an elbow right through his guard. It was a weird knockout. Then there was that weird fight with Nikolai Negamariano. There's been some weird outcomes. The Paul Craig outcome where he was winning the entire fight up until Paul Craig submits him with like 40 seconds left. So this is not the guy I want to be laying -500 on ever, but he's going against OSP, who, like I said, should not be fighting. He's 26-17 now. He is turning 41 like in the next couple months, and quite frankly, it just doesn't look like OSP gives a crap anymore. You know, he steps in there, and it looks like he literally doesn't want to be in there. Like, it's, you know, the Jamal Hill fight, which it's Jamal Hill. It is what it is, but that was a terrible performance. The Tanner Boser fight was a horrible performance. Got just dog-walked by Tanner Boser and knocked out. Against Shogun Hua, it was a split decision fight where it could have went either way. Both guys did nothing. That performance was embarrassing. And then he went out there and got dog-walked by Philippe Lins, getting finished in less than a minute. So, yeah, just hasn't had a great performance since that Menafield fight back in like 2020, which at that point he was like 36 years old. Now he's 40. So, yeah, it's Kennedy here. You know, Kennedy's the guy that is typically a slow starter, but I kind of have a feeling he probably finishes OSP in the first round. And if he doesn't, he's going to finish him in the second. So, yeah, give me Kennedy here. Kennedy to win this fight by first round knockout in a fight that, like I said, should not be happening. Okay, we got the co-main event here. We got Bryan Battle going against Angelusa. We got Bryan Battle, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach, 10-2. And 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Angelusa, 29 years old, 5'10" with a 74-inch reach, 10-3, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Bryan Battle opening up -140, currently -170. Angelusa opening up +120, currently +145. And yeah, I think this is a very well-matched fight. I know money's coming in on Bryan Battle. The guy's starting to gain some hype. Had a really good performance against AJ Fletcher, submitted him in the second round. Had a 14-second knockout against Gabe Green. Yeah, there's a lot to like about Bryan Battle. But I really do think Angelusa is very underrated. Angelusa is a guy that has started to finally mix in some wrestling into a lot of his fights. I remember one of the commentators, I forget which one, was talking about it in the Reese McKee fight, how, you know, Angelusa is putting a huge emphasis on, you know, his wrestling in his training camps, you know, starting to work on the wrestling, and he's not a bad wrestler at all. Went out there and landed 6 takedowns against Reese McKee. The fight prior went out there and landed 2 takedowns against AJ Fletcher, so he can definitely wrestle. He can definitely get the fights down to the mat, and his striking is not half bad either. Very high volume striker, you know, pretty hittable, but a very tough guy. But yeah, the volume's certainly there. And yeah, Bryan Battle, he's a guy that has solid volume in his own right, but very, very hittable on the feet himself, but a very tough guy as well. So I feel like these guys are kind of similar, but, you know, Bryan Battle has a pretty big hole in his game, and that's the takedown defense. Guys are able to take this guy down at will. We saw Tresean Gore take him down twice, Gilbert Urbina take him down twice before he ended up gassing out in the second, and then Rinat Fakhretdinov take him down 7 times. And I know it's Rinat Fakhretdinov. People like this guy. I don't really like Rinat Fakhretdinov, but people do. 14 minutes and 11 seconds of control time for Rinat Fakhretdinov. You know, Bryan Battle, not only did he show trash takedown defense, but he showed an ability to not work his way back up, to kind of just, you know, stay on his back. Gilbert Urbina was able to win the entire round just grappling this guy, taking this guy down to the mat. We saw Andre Petroski in the Tough House, have some success taking him down, controlling him up until Petroski gassed out. So, yeah, I certainly feel like Angelusa can actually mix in some takedowns here, win some minutes on the ground. But, yeah, I think it's a close fight. I'm going to go with Angelusa here to pull off the upset. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be competitive. But I feel like just him being able to mix in those takedowns, because Bryan Battle's not taking down Angelusa, I don't think. Angelusa's takedown defense is very good. On paper, it's 100%. Hasn't fought the best wrestlers, but still, even like outside the UFC, his takedown defense is elite as well. So I don't think Battle's taking him down. I think, if anything, it's Lusa who's able to get takedowns here. So, close fight. Could go either way. The line doesn't indicate that, but I'm going to say Lusa does get it done by decision. Okay, next we got the main event. I did do a main event breakdown if you guys want to check it out on the channel, but we got Tai Tuivasa going against Marcin Tybura. We got Tai Tuivasa, 31 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach, 15-6 and 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Tybura, 38 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach, 24-8, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Tuivasa opened up -130, currently -125. Tybura opened up +110, currently +105. And yeah, I'm going to keep it short and sweet, kind of how I think this fight is going to play out. I think it's going to be pretty short and sweet. I think it's a good spot for Tai Tuivasa to get back in the win column here. Tai Tuivasa needs a win here. He's on a 3-fight skid, getting finished, I believe, in all 3 of those losses. Volkov submitted him. Pavlovich went out there and knocked him out. And then he also lost to, who was it? Cyril Gahn, and that was a knockout in the 3rd round as well. So yeah, 3 losses, 3 finish losses. Hasn't looked great, but yeah, look at the level of competition. Volkov, Pavlovich, Gahn, all those fighters, they beat Tybura pretty handily, and Volkov has beat Tybura pretty handily, and Pavlovich would destroy Tybura, and then as would Cyril Gahn as well. So yeah, I think it's a good spot for Tai Tuivasa to get back on track here. And the thing with Marcin Tybura is he's not like your typical heavyweight at all. He has like no power. He has so many fights in the UFC, but only 4 finishes to show for it. And like the majority of those finishes are like TKOs on the mat against opponents who are completely gassed out. And hey, that can happen here. If he gets on top of Tuivasa and Tuivasa's gassed out, 3rd, 4th, 5th round, yeah, Tybura can potentially get him out of there, but Tybura doesn't really wrestle much either. You would think this guy would go out there and try to wrestle a little bit more, but he kind of, in a lot of his fights, takes like the Homer Simpson approach, where he takes a lot of punishment early, like he did in the Walt Harris fight, like he did in the Hardy fight, and then waits for those guys to kind of gas out. Then he gets on top, and then he finishes you. I just don't think Tuivasa is going to let him off the hook here, because I do think Tuivasa is going to be at a big striking advantage here, a big power advantage, I should say. Tuivasa hits like an absolute truck, one of the hardest hitters in the heavyweight division. Defensively is not great, but I don't think that matters here. Tybura is not going to hurt him. Like, Tai Tuivasa is not going to worry about anything coming back his way. What he needs to worry about is those takedowns, though. And yeah, if he can stuff the takedowns or even just knock out Tybura before he starts to wrestle, yeah, I think Tuivasa probably gets it done here. So I think the leg kicks will be a big factor. And I think we see Tai Tuivasa knock out Tybura. We've seen Tybura knocked out plenty of times in the UFC. We just saw Aspinall knock him out in less than a minute. We saw Augustus Sakai, of all people, knock him out. We saw Shamil Abdurakhimov, of all people, knock him out. Derek Lewis knocked him out. So yeah, he's been knocked out a fair share of times. He's been hurt a lot as well. And I think Tai Tuivasa knocks him out as well. So give me a Tai Tuivasa first round knockout. Not something to be extremely confident in, because if this fight does get extended and if Tybura does get on top of Tuivasa, it's probably going to look bad, but I just think Tuivasa is going to catch him before that even happens. So give me Tuivasa to win this fight. Tuivasa to win this fight by first round knockout. There you guys have it. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Be on the lookout for more content throughout the week. The predictions, the betting, the DraftKings, the prize picks, the live streams Friday and Saturday as well. If you guys want to support me more, check out prize picks. Use that promo code DFSBTN. You'll get yourself a 100% deposit match up to $100. And then also check out DFSbythenumbers.com. There you'll find all my other content throughout the week, articles, bets, stats, you name it. A ton of content behind the scenes as well. So there you guys have it. Best of luck for UFC Vegas 88 and enjoy the card. We'll talk to you very soon. See you later.